Good morning, Bemidji State University. Happy Friday. I hope none of you are planning on injecting disinfectants into your bodies this weekend. Welcome to the fifth episode of What's New BSU. We've got a really good show for you today, I think. You're not going to be subjected to 9 minutes of anyone's basement, which is going to be awesome. But the back staff from earlier this week asking for submissions was super successful. We got some really good stuff and enough to even push some things into next week's show. So thank you very much to everyone who submitted things for the show. It's going to be really fun. So first, let's get started with this week's countdown.
8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Yay! 14 days until commencement, 7 days until finals. We are almost done. It feels like we've been doing this COVID-19 business forever. It's almost to the point that it's difficult to remember what we were doing before all of this started, or at least that has been for me anyway. So kudos again to all of you out there for the work that you have done, for the work that you continue to do, and for everything that all of you are doing together to help our students finish their semesters. It really has been fantastic. So thank you again, and 14 more days. We can do this. Keep it up. So our first submission this week is going to be Meet My Pet, and this comes from Maria Eastman.
Good girl, Sharpie.
Thank you.
She says never address without a smile. That is
Antiques Roadshow was excited for our first visit to Little Rock. The city's name comes from 18th century.
Animal Inn, and I absolutely love that she has an orange fish named Orangey. The only thing that would be better is if it was a blue fish named Orangey, but that's awesome. So thank you, Maria, for sending that in. That was great. So our next segment for this week's show is a look at someone else's workspace, and this one is super cool, and this comes from Susie Langout. And if you know Susie, you can probably guess what this is going to look like, but this is really good.
So this is our office space that we have. We're in kind of a different situation than some, I think. But this is what our office space looks like that we set up at home. So it's kind of fun. So we get to come over and hang out here in quarantine. We have one of our 3 friends here today, but they like the dance floor too, so. Anyway, I hope everybody's doing good out there. We'll see you soon.
Thanks for that, Susie. I love that lime green wall. It just makes me happy. So thank you for sending that in. Our third segment for this week comes from Madeline Turnquist, and she wants to introduce us to some friends that live in the biology department.
So this is Rhonda. She is one of our crayfish in the biology lab here at BSU. I come to campus to feed them and the other animals about twice a week. She is fed frozen bloodworms. Come on, let go. She is one of our more enthusiastic crayfish when it comes to eating. And next to her, we have Rocky, who is pretty skittish. And he doesn't have any big pinchers, so I think that's why he skirts around his tank a lot more. And they are just some of the many animals here in the lab.
That is so cool. In the fact staff, I put out a call that we were looking for things that were hopefully a little bit more diverse than dogs, and we have got that in spades this weekend. So that has been really fantastic. So next up on our show, we've got this week's featured guest. This week, we're going to be talking with Randy Ludeman, the Director of Housing and Residential Life. And he probably has had one of the more interesting jobs during this whole coronavirus situation. We all, especially at the beginning of this, were in a pretty chaotic state, but I think Randy's life was probably more chaotic than most, just with the responsibility of managing residents and everything that has gone on over the last month in housing and residential life. So I'm looking forward to hearing from Randy about how that went. So good morning, Randy, and thank you for joining us.
Morning, thanks for having me.
Yeah, so I guess just describe when this situation first broke. I mean, obviously students were still on spring break, and the first message that we got from the system office was that we were just going to be extending spring break. So I guess share a little bit with the people who joined us on the show what the conversations were like in Res Life about how your staff was going to work with students just on their delayed return when it looked like that was going to be what the situation was going to be, and then how things changed with your team and with how you were relating with students when you found out that the spring semester was in fact going to be much different than what anyone had expected.
Absolutely. Well, I'd start with telling you that it fills my heart up to talk about the environment and the team that I work with. I spent 30 years doing pandemic and emergency planning on paper, and to actually use that planning with the group that I have the fortune to work with has been amazing. So I'd start with letting you know that, and that team is beyond the housing and res life. There's public safety, the facilities crew, the IT crew, communications and marketing. We can go on and on and on. Well-oiled machine really makes a difference in these situations, and to actually experience that with the community that we've had here has been a pleasure given the circumstances. Really wanted to say that up front. you do make these plans. Emergency preparedness and continuing operation planning has been a part of every year's worth of planning for housing and res life. And as we sat in late January, early February and looked at this thing as a potential, we started having conversations then about what we would do. And fortunate to have really good minds at the table. We were ready when the decisions were made to change things on spring semester. But it is an incredible experience to watch how things can change by the minute. And we made some decisions about housing one day that were changed the next based on guidance from the system level, and decisions at the university level. And so we really needed to stay in touch with our students on a regular basis. And we find out in these situations that we think that we have our students' ear and attention, but we don't always have that. So we had to attend at the macro and micro level to them. We would send these mass emails and then miss some people and need to follow up in different ways. But one of the most satisfying things about all of this, if there are such things in these crisis situations, is how important we are to our residents, how much they wanted to be here even though they couldn't, how they still want to come back and be a part of the community here, and that again is a positive sign about what we offer. But the planning and the operations stuff is continuing at just a rapid fire pace. We're meeting every day as a group to talk about what tomorrow brings. We're attending to students that are living on campus. We still have a number of them here. And I don't want to get ahead of myself with the show here, but it has been a roller coaster, a ride.
Yeah, just from the communication that Rachel and I were having with students right in those first early days, right as we were getting the coronavirus website set up, and when we got I have a question form, and we're getting probably 20 questions a night from students. I think the most frustrating thing that we saw from students was the fact that we would send something, and then maybe even through email, by the time the student had even had a chance to see it, it had changed, just because everything was happening so quickly. So what kinds of things were you doing to communicate with your staff at the very beginning of all this, just to make sure that your team had the best information that it could have about how to respond to this situation?
We had been on a weekly schedule for most of my career for staff meetings, where the central group would get together and do our planning and follow through. And we moved that immediately to daily Zoom at some point down the road. But we were meeting in the office daily for a while, doing the conversations and the plannings and the what ifs and scenarios and communication plan and et cetera. And into spring break, we started to get those messages prepared ahead of time for, we have almost 100 student staff that are out living on the floors with students that are our main communication link with the residents. We started those messaging with them prior to break, and then into break, using them as well as and still use those. We still have those student staff working remotely, communicating our messages through social media and other platforms to our students, asking them what questions they have and trying to support their progress through spring semester. But yeah, the messaging was sitting on a table, virtual table, and being tweaked by the minute and ready to go. But we had various messages ready to go in those scenarios so that we didn't have a delay. Once we got a need to send something, we were ready to go. But yeah, it was hard to keep track. I have colleagues around the system, other directors that I was also trying to stay in touch with. In the evenings, we would get together and have some conversation online about what they were doing and where they were headed and the things that they were anticipating, and that community was really helpful as well.
What what was it like when you realized that you were going to have to make the decision to close the halls?
Well, to be honest with you, we were hoping that it would move in that direction, um, only because of the communal environment that we have and what we knew at the time related to health and safety. And so we knew that there were students that had gone to spring break and traveled, and at the time we knew they were coming from places that likely would bring COVID back to our community. So we were really hoping that the safety and health of our students would drive this decision, and ultimately I think it did for the system, to not allow that kind of health risk to occur. So when the decision was made, it was kind of a dual-edged sword. We knew that it was going to be a better situation for our students and their health and safety, but we knew it was also going to create a whole new set of dynamics and workload to accomplish what needed to be accomplished to meet everybody's needs. And every individual student, of course, had different needs. We had some students that had nowhere to go. Without the residence halls, they would be homeless. So we had to work through a process of allowing some exceptions to be made to stay, while obviously attending to all of the health needs related to that, and safety needs. But we also knew there were going to be students that couldn't come back to get their things, their belongings. So we needed to make arrangements for them to be allowed to leave their belongings, and communicate that to them, that they would be safe and secure. Then we had a group that wanted to come to campus to get their stuff. So we had to arrange in a safe way those students coming back to pack up and check out, respecting all of the health guidance that we've been given from the Minnesota Department of Health and other entities about safely having people on a college campus. So, like I said, daily planning and daily task lists of how we're going to accomplish all this. And I'm just so fortunate to have such a talented group of people that we did that pretty easily.
Yeah, that's trying to manage move-in day is one thing, but trying to manage students who want to stay and students who want to leave and students who just want to pick up their stuff and get out of there all within a span of about 3 days must have been incredibly challenging. So some people may not realize that we still have students that are still living on campus with us in the midst of all this. We have somewhere between 60 and 70 residents. So talk a little bit about what sort of services those students who are still living on our campus are getting, and what it's been like to work with them through this for the last couple of weeks.
We were really for a better scenario. When we vetted the student request for exceptions to stay, we had developed some criteria that would guide those decisions. Most of it was related to no safe options for housing other than what we offered them. And so we used a small group of decision makers to vet those exemption requests. And at the end of the day, when we had the 60 or 70 students that had requested to stay, that were approved to stay, where they were currently living fell into a scenario where they were spread out fairly well in their current assignments, and we could just leave them where they were. We didn't have to do much moving. There was a decision at some point down the road to move some people out of Oak Hall and try to limit the number of facilities that we needed to work with, and move them into Linden where they had their private bathrooms. But otherwise, we were really fortunate and have worked on health and safety as a priority in attending to keeping people kind of separated and distant in a safe way. So we're still providing daily updates and communication through email. We have undergraduate staff that have decided to stay as well on campus and are working as our staff, attending to those students, delivering their mail and packages right to their room. We've got our talented facility crew, our GMWs, doing the cleaning where those students are living on a regular basis. We're even attending to the students that have decided not to live here, or that we didn't approve to stay, through the residence hall staff that are reaching out to them electronically and online to support their academics and personal questions and issues throughout the semester. We're doing some virtual programming with them and community building, trying to keep their spirits up. We partnered with the Student Center for Health and Counseling to attend to the mental and physical health issues of the students that are on and off campus. They're doing some tele-counseling and medical services for our students as well. We've got the International Program Center and the staff there working with our international students who have a whole nother set of dynamics that they're experiencing now related to being in the States. So yeah, that part of what we do, our community work, is continuing with our smaller population in a different way. Again, proud of the group and how they're attending to our students.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us this morning. I appreciate you taking time out of the schedule that you just described to join us and talk a little bit about what you and your team have been dealing with for the last couple of weeks. Good luck to you for the rest of the semester and planning for the fall. Thanks for being with us this morning.
Thank you very much.
All right. So up next on What's New BSU, we've got a look at home for Tammy Rogers. Thanks so much to Tammy for sharing those photos with us. That turned into a pretty cool little slideshow. The last video that I've got to share with you this week comes from Jolie, and it's from Sean, who's one of our North Star visiting scholars who's been living in the Glass House, and this was just too good not to share. So please enjoy Sean's video.
Hi guys, how are you doing? I'm Sean. I think today is a pretty special day for me because I received an email from the university. And so guys all know the situation about coronavirus in the US is pretty bad. The university looking forward to utilize the Glass Scholars House for their isolation housing. So that means I gotta move out from here before the end of this week. Since tonight is gonna be the last night that I can sleep on this bed. Tomorrow I got a lot of things to figure it out, and I have a lot of things to do. Tonight, so gotta sleep now.
School bell rings, I unpack my things, another day of wasting my time. My head hurts when I get my homework and know that something ain't right. Teacher, don't teach me things that don't mean a thing to my life. Cause today's not the day for putting me in line. No, stop telling me what I gotta live for. You don't know me.
I'm gonna miss you, Mr. Soper.
Here I was, just creating music. I had no idea what for. It just felt right.
All right, everything is all set. I think it's time to move out. I'm thinking about there are some good moments in my mind about Glass House. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, so that is so good. It's so good. I feel really badly that I had to compress the crap out of that video so that I could stream it and not crash the show like we had problems with the first week. So I guarantee you that we will make that video available in some other way so that you can see it the way that Sean intended it to be seen and not all pixelated and looking terrible. But so good. So good. It's a perfect reminder of why we're doing this show and why we get people together here every week. We're all in this together. We want our students and employees to stay safe, healthy, and well, and that's why Sean was asked to move. And we want our students to complete our semesters. And just a reminder that we are all in this together. So tune in next week. Different Beaver time. As you saw in the fact staff that came out earlier this week, there is a open forum for the 4th of our finalists for the position of provost next Friday at 10 o'clock, and I'm not about to compete for the provost interview. So we haven't decided on this 100% for sure yet, but I think next week's show is going to be at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. But look for our fact staff next week about that. So tune in next week, same Beaver channel, slightly different Beaver time. Thanks for coming, everybody. Have an awesome weekend.